Welcome to another episode of College Admission TV. JP Novin speaks with Paul Maurer, president of Montreat College, about the expectation that AI will change education from K to doctorate, and posing the greatest risk to knowledge workers, according to Peter Drucker's definition.
Welcome to Season 3 of Higher Education Leader Podcast. This season, we're discussing AI education and the future of workforce. I'd like to thank our sponsor, ASU GSV, for supporting this season, and to our listeners who are going to be listening to this episode on Spotify and watching the full conversation on College Admission TV. I'm your host, JP Novin, and today I'm honored to welcome President Paul Maurer, president of Montreat College in North Carolina. Welcome, President Maurer.
Great to be back with you, JP. Thank you.
You guys are a historical institution founded in 1916, rooted in the Reformed and Evangelical tradition, offering Christ-oriented education that's integrated in faith and learning. I also want to highlight that what really intrigued us about Montreat is the Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense and Cybersecurity by the National Security Agency, NSA, and Department of Homeland Security. You've done a fantastic job in the last 12 years, really taking Montreat through COVID and, enrollment cliff, all the demographic shifts. So I would like to hand it to you to basically tell our audience a little bit about your history and how, how do you find this role as a president, and also inform us about Montreat College.
Yeah, thank you, JP. Again, it's a pleasure to be with you and your audience today. My history, very quickly, is that I thought I would be at a sense of call. I'm a Christian believer. Thought I had a sense of call to the pastoral ministry. Went to seminary, got finished with seminary, and really discerned that was probably not the vehicle for the call. And so faith-based higher education came into focus over the next few years. Went back and got a PhD in political philosophy and American politics out on the West Coast at Claremont. And then for the last 25 years, I've served in administrative roles, 15 of those as a college president at 2 institutions. And college I'm at now, 12th year here at Montreat College. We're in the western mountains of North Carolina near the city of Asheville. With a very historic background. If any of your listeners have heard of the name Billy Graham, Montreat, North Carolina is where Billy and Ruth Graham got married. They actually got married in our chapel on our college campus back in 1943. She was a graduate of Montreat back in 1936, and they settled in our little town very little town, 1 road in, 1 road out of Montreat, set against a mountain cove, and they lived here for most of their lives. And so there's a long history of a faith-based understanding of not just pedagogy, but life, and believing that there's a good God. And so we are in our 110th year as a college, and we've been blessed with a lot of growth in the last decade. We know that we don't take that for granted. We know that a lot of schools have been in decline with the demographic shift of the last 20 years, but we're grateful for the growth and the footprint that not just cybersecurity, but our honors program and other strong academic programs have given the college.
Fantastic. That is an incredible history, and how romantic. So let's start with the easy question. How do you perceive the impact of AI on the future of workforce in the next coming 5 years?
Yeah, well, there's an easy question, right? Well, I think anyone who's been paying attention to AI recently, I think most people are of the mind, and I certainly am of the mind, that it's going to change almost everything. It is that large. It is that comprehensive. I think it is already obviously shaping the workforce. Our faculty, my faculty is reading a book on artificial intelligence called Teaching with AI. It's really an excellent book. I'm reading it with our faculty. And the authors make this point at the beginning of the book, that the internet changed our relationship to knowledge, and that AI is changing our relationship to thinking. So the very enterprise of education is going to change. It is changing, K through doctorate. And so how exactly it will change education, how exactly it will change the workforce, I don't think anybody actually knows the answers to those things. But there are both positive elements to what we perceive as the change, and there are very threatening elements to what we perceive as the change. On the positive end, I think that there are a great many efficiencies that are being gained and can be gained. There's a great deal of what people might refer to as grunt work, and really slogging through slow process type work that can now be done almost instantly, and we save a lot of time. So I've asked my administrative team to, over the last year, they've been working on how to use AI for efficiencies from an administrative standpoint, and our team's doing that. But from a pedagogical, from an educational standpoint, I have to wonder how much AI will undermine the very concept of becoming an educated human being. When you have shortcuts, people tend to take them, and AI provides a lot of shortcut opportunity toward the otherwise more difficult enterprise of becoming an educated human being. So there's a lot that we're facing today, and there's a lot that we'll be facing tomorrow along these and many other lines.
So as a man of faith and a faith-based institution, how do you perceive pretty much the mankind creation of next robotics, and how we basically are going to interact with this new world? I know a lot of students at your university take, Bible study classes as well, and it's also offered as a minor. How do you grapple with that? Is that a concern as a faith-based institution, what's happening in AI? I mean, what are some of the interesting discussion that you have about reconciling faith and AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. We actually are in the final stages of writing a document that's our theological position on artificial intelligence. Because we're a faith-based institution, we actually start with theology. So we're a theological educational institution. And for your listeners who may not know much about Montreat College, we are a 4-year liberal arts institution. We have a number of master's degrees, but at our core, we're a 4-year baccalaureate liberal arts institution. And I'm a deep believer in the liberal arts. That would be in distinction from colleges that would be known as Bible colleges or Bible schools. Mm-hmm. Our largest major is business econ. Our second largest major is cybersecurity. The health sciences are number 3. So we're a true liberal arts college. But our approach to artificial intelligence is informed by our theological beliefs and convictions. And so the policies that are forthcoming for us as a college in terms of how we will govern our policies with AI have to be informed by a theological understanding. And so our faculty has been working on this statement this semester. I took it to my board just a few weeks ago as a draft. We'll be finalizing this document at our January trustee meeting. And it does, at its core, make the distinction between humanity and artificial intelligence. And there's a reason why it's called artificial. It is actually not intelligent. It's created by man and humanity. And so part of what we have faced in our journey in cybersecurity is the same confusion that is growing in artificial intelligence, and that is it equal to humanity? Does it actually gain sentience? These are things that we have a pretty clear picture of, in part because of our theological convictions and understanding about the world and the created order in which we live.
Thank you for that. I had one president saying, AI is not greater than God. You know, that was his statement. So there's a lot of discussion around economic displacement, right? And at least in Silicon Valley, where we're located, we're seeing more and more jobs and layoffs, even in top companies out here. But as you look ahead, let's just focus on the next 5 years. Do you see certain professions or industries at risk?
I do, and I think part of that is, I think the greatest risk is to what Peter Drucker coined the phrase decades ago, knowledge worker.
Yes, I know Peter.
Right. Drucker's argument was we are fully and finally out of the Industrial Revolution, and the work now, this was back in the 80s and 90s, the work now is about knowledge work. And so it seems to the people I've read and people I've listened to that the manual labor is not at risk by AI. The many of the things that require human beings to do with their hands, they are not at risk. But the knowledge worker is more at risk. And so what happens to the legal professional? What happens in medicine? What happens in academia? What happens in the places where you're much more fundamentally rooted in knowledge? And if you have a tool, AI, that can retrieve and accumulate and synthesize and analyze that knowledge much faster than a person, then companies are certainly taking and will continue to take that path forward. So I think the workforce implications, at least for the near term, are going to be most felt by the knowledge worker and less so by the manual worker.
Unless you're a driver. To some degree. I could tell you here in the Bay Area, especially places like SF, we're going to see more self-driving cars than Uber cars these days. So I know your school has been really around cybersecurity. There is a intentful, obviously, approach to AI, because cybersecurity and AI are a big concern. But as you think about AI literacy, what do you think you need to do to educate your students for careers that are exceedingly at a much rapid pace are changing today? What does AI literacy look like at Montreat?
What AIC literacy looks like here is teaching students how to use AI responsibly and effectively. And both of those matter. They have to be able to use it responsibly, but they also have to know how to use it. And what's so interesting to us as we think about the future of our own teaching and teaching in AI is how much AI is pushing us, and we think perhaps many other institutions in higher education, back toward the liberal arts, not away from the liberal arts. And why do I say that? Well, because the best use of AI as a tool is learning how to ask really good questions. And this is at the very core of a liberal arts education, is teaching human beings how to ask good questions. And so if you any of your listeners who are using AI, the way to get what you're looking for with an AI tool is to keep refining the question. You ask the question and then it gives you a response. It's not quite what you want, so you narrow the question, you refine the question, and it pushes you as the user of the tool to ask better and better questions at each iteration. And so I think that's learning, and that's a thought process, and that's training the human mind to ask better and better questions. So at its core, the use of the AI tool is about becoming more proficient as a liberal arts student.
You're mentioning something very interesting here, because I was also a liberal arts major. I was a philosophy major, and I think it does resonate, because what the AI says, if you don't have critical thinking, you're just going to take it at face value, right? So just being able, does this make sense? Is this, even if you're not, PhD level, academic, you should have the common sense, or let's call it AI common sense, right? I think that's what, is that a good phrase for it? Creating the AI common sense to a degree to kind of know, yeah, there's something not right here, and being able to go deeper.
I'd actually rephrase it. I think AI common sense is a great phrase. I might also add AI skepticism. We should always approach the use of AI with a persistent and non-ending skepticism, because we already know how wrong it is at so many levels. We already know how biased it is in so many ways. And so if we're not AI skeptics, we are not thinking well, and we are sheep. And we should not, as educators, like, we're trying to get people to learn the skills of critical thinking, and part of that is asking questions with a not cynical version of skepticism.
Yeah. So we're in control rather than AI being in control, right? We're on a driver's seat. To that end, are you thinking about particular pedagogy, curriculum, classes? How do you think pedagogy is going to evolve in the coming 5 years, given so much of the work that we're going to be doing is just going to be embedded with AI? I mean, do you see new majors, new classes, new curriculums at Montreat?
I do. We actually just launched an AI minor this fall underneath our cybersecurity major. And we did that. The National Security Agency, for whom we've done contract work for many years, they asked for some volunteers to do this as part of continued development of our cybersecurity curriculum. And we said, yeah, we're in. We're happy to volunteer for that. So we did that. But I would say that because of the pervasiveness of AI and the pervasiveness of cybersecurity, which of course is our signature program, we already have a gen ed requirement for all of our students to take a 1 credit hour course in cybersecurity, because it's that pervasive, and every student needs to have some literacy and some ability to interface with the realities of cybersecurity. Now with AI, we are reconsidering that, so that, and we don't have this approved by the faculty at this point, but this is the conversation I've been having with my provost, is that we're moving toward probably a 2 or 3 credit hour gen ed course for all of our students on both AI and cybersecurity, that we would entitle perhaps something like technology and ethics. Because if it's not enough to be conversant with the technology and to understand the technology, but you must also understand a responsible use of the technology, be it cybersecurity or artificial intelligence. So I'm actually very excited about having an updated gen ed course that focuses on both those and the responsible use of them.
there's been a lot of discussion about accreditation. Okay. Do you think how we are doing our accreditation is going to get impacted as a result of all this?
That's a really good question. I've not thought about the impact on accreditation. I think our system of accreditation is, by and large, a very, very good system, namely peer review. I think that's the wise way to do higher education accreditation. I guess my initial response is there must be ways to streamline and create efficiencies in the accreditation process, which, in my experience over 25 years in higher ed administration, is a terribly laborious and terribly slow and very, very time-consuming process. So there have to be ways to gain efficiencies. I think there will be ways to gain efficiencies in both the reporting and in the accountability. But I think we've got to see the accrediting bodies embrace that. Not just, it can't be the schools like us just embracing it. It has to be the accrediting bodies themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, part of it is trying to bring down the cost, right? I mean, some of it goes into that. But, you know, I think when we look at the impact the internet had in education overall, making access to information easy, right? Easier. People used to come to university to get information, to get knowledge. And now with AI, it's even more surgical. You don't even have to do a lot of search. You get your answer right there, right? So, you know, the question is, I'm seeing more and more universities are setting up three-year degrees and what have you. Do you think there's going to be a change in how the length on, getting a bachelor degree or what have you, or a master's or a PhD? Do you think that all might change?
It might. I think there are a lot of things that may change. I was at a AI and ethics conference at University of Notre Dame just a few weeks ago, and one of the presenters said that he envisions that AI may be the end of the 5 to 7 page paper. Because how do you know what's original work, and the difficulty of discerning that will become greater and greater and make those obsolete. Is he right? I don't know the answer to that. He actually extended that into the doctoral programs and said he wonders whether the doctoral dissertation will become obsolete. And again, what's original research? Whose research is it? How do you verify that? How do you footnote that? All those things are still being absorbed by people in higher education, and I think that absorption will take some time. In terms of the length of time for a degree, our human brains are still our human brains, and I'd be very, very careful about assuming that because of machine speed, that our own human processing speed, it doesn't change with it, because a machine processes faster than a human mind.
Yeah.
And by the way, what's the goal? And so the goal of a machine is not critical thinking. The goal of a person is critical thinking. But I would actually extend that objective in higher education, at least in our institution, that we want students to leave here wise. We don't just want them to, knowledge is not the objective. It is not but that is the objective for AI. It's knowledge and it's speed of analysis. But you must have humans thinking analytically, critically, thoughtfully, and wisely.
Well, AI cannot teach wisdom, and it cannot give you mental health, that's for sure. But, you know, very shallow question by me. What is the goal of higher education today in your mind?
Depends who you ask. If you ask me, I'm going to probably have a different answer than what I think most of my state institution peers would answer. I think I'm the product of a large state university. There were 40,000 undergrads at my undergrad, and I was a number. It was more of a factory kind of experience. I was literally a number for the first 2 years of my college experience. I didn't sign my name to anything. It didn't occur to me to talk to a faculty member until my junior year. I sat in the back of large lecture halls, had 900 in my freshman biology class. And so I think the state has an interest, meaning the government has an interest in producing a large number of college graduates for the economy, for the economics of society. So I think higher education has largely, not entirely, been reduced to economics. But if you look at the history of American higher education, which began with the founding of Harvard in 1636, for the first really at least 250 years, so those nearly 400 years, the goal of these institutions, all the Ivy Leagues, with maybe the exception of Cornell, their objective was to shape a human soul. It was to shape a human being. And so part of what I say to the parents who come to my college and prospective parents and students is to say, we are not here to shape economic beings. We're here to shape human beings. Like, you are here to grow into an adult person. You're here to gain wisdom and knowledge. You're here to transition from becoming a boy to a man, and from a girl to a woman, to become a self-sustaining contributor to society. And that's what happens at a residential college like ours, is that transition of life happens. So our objective is developing a human being, much more so. I mean, the economics matter. Don't get me wrong. I don't want any of my kids living in my basement any more than anyone else does. But the three-dimensional view that we have, I think, has largely been lost in most of American higher education as a one-dimensional economic view.
And that comes up a lot. I mean, when we survey parents, one of the, I think the negative perception of education has risen year over year the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, especially around liberal arts education, which I'm a product of, you're a product of, which is, does it make sense? And I'm going to basically pose a question parents do, and I'd love to hear your answer. My son or daughter wants to study a liberal arts major, let's say English, in humanities or what have you, and it's going to cost six figures in most cases by the time they get that. Is it worth it, especially during this uncertain economic times, given AI? What would you tell a parent like that?
I've had this conversation for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the answer is the same today as it was 2 decades ago. And that is that all the longitudinal research, all of it, says that the economic benefit of college is more than worth it. Why do I say that? Well, because the longitudinal data shows that the difference between the lifetime earnings of someone who has a high school diploma only versus the economic lifetime earning of someone who has a 4-year degree only is over $1 million of difference over a lifetime of earnings. That's on average. Some more, some less. You can't just get a college degree and expect to go make a lot of money over a lifetime. You've also got to have a work ethic. You've also got to be honest. You've got to apply yourself. You've got to want to learn and grow. All those things are true, but they've always been true. But the economic value of a 4-year degree is unquestionably there in all the data, all of the data. And I would further say that the debt crisis, and I will use air quotes because I don't think the debt crisis of American education is a crisis. Well, if you look at the aggregate number of whatever it is, $1.4 trillion of debt in higher education, but if you break that down by student, the average 4-year graduate student debt in America, the average is $29,000. It's not 250,000. It's not $500,000. What we hear in the media all the time are the outlier examples. They are not the norm. The norm is $29,000. And you have to understand that higher education economically is not an expense, but an investment. It's an investment in a lifetime of earnings. And so it's not the same economic principle as buying a car. Buying a car is an expense. Getting a college education, if you get a good education, is an investment. An expense and investment are two different economic principles, and the numbers behind the investment in a college education are just indisputable.
And that number includes professional degrees. It includes, becoming a nurse, becoming a PA, becoming a lawyer. So if you just look at the undergraduate, it's probably even a lot lower as far as the debt that's out there out of the 1.4 trillion that you mentioned. So when we look at, typically industrial revolutions, I mean, going back to the 1800s, internet, automation, this feels a little different, President Maurer, because the question is, do we have enough run rate, to basically upskill our workforce, especially now people are working in their late 70s, so people are working longer, and there's a huge group of people who are past their 50s. They're going to work another 20, 30 years. But we're seeing jobs being displaced today. Are you concerned about that at all?
I am, but I'm not panicked. And I think that every major technological revolution has raised exactly the same questions. I mean, these questions were raised when Gutenberg invented the printing press. And so for the last 500 years, every time there's a major new technological innovation, the same questions come up. And the reality is that, yes, jobs are lost, but it's also true that jobs are gained and created. And so the internet created a whole lot of jobs, and it ended a whole lot of jobs. And I tend to think that AI will have a similar impact of ending a lot of jobs, but also creating a lot of jobs.
You're not concerned about the speed? I mean, the speed feels a little different.
The speed is different, and the comprehensive nature of it is different. But humans have an amazing ability to adjust, and we are in fast moving times. There's no question about it. Will there be winners and losers? Of course, there always are in everything. And so those that adapt, those that are agile, those that are entrepreneurial, those that lean into these things, they will be the ones that tend to work out pretty well. Those that run and hide, deny, avoid, they're more likely, in my estimation, to get caught in a bad place.
So my last two questions. One is, how did Montreat end up being so strong in cybersecurity? Could you share a little bit of history around that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're in our 14th year of teaching cybersecurity. My first year here was our first year of full Bachelor's of Science in Cyber. And we decided early on that we thought we had something pretty special and on the front end of it. And so we made a decision to swing for the fences on cyber. So we invested a lot of time and energy and resources. We began to go to Washington, D.C. on a regular basis. We began to build relationships with key members of our federal government and three-letter agencies. You noted early on that we're a Center of Academic Excellence as designated by the National Security Agency. We gained that designation back in 2017. And we were invited around the table to help map out the future of cyber education by the NSA. We were invited around that table to dialogue and help them think about the future, in part because of our narrative that the problem of cybersecurity is not principally a technical problem. It's principally a human problem. And therefore, the solution to cybersecurity is not principally technical, it's principally a human solution. Namely, if you don't have people of character and ethics as your cyber leaders and your cyber operators, your technology doesn't matter very much. So the human factor in cyber is something that we came to early on, and we tested that narrative. And the marketplace actually responded very, very well, and so did the NSA. And so we think that a similar reality exists with AI, but that became our calling card, if you will, in cybersecurity. And we just began to recruit very heavily because we do what we think is a full version of teaching the liberal arts and critical thinking and relationship skills and teamwork skills along with all the technical skills, because we've heard for years from industry leaders that they're hiring really competent technical people out of universities, but they don't know how to talk to the person next to them. They don't know how to write a one-page memo. They have no idea how to work together on a team. And so they are calling for a reemergence of the soft skills, the liberal arts. We're seeing this from Silicon Valley. We're seeing tech leaders all narrating the same narration. And because we've been doing all of that all along, our program has gained leadership.
I lied. I have another question before I get to my last question. Because you just brought up something amazing, the character part of cybersecurity. We are a company with a lot of data. Over 11 million students have used our platforms and what have. So data security, if it's internally compromised, that's the worst thing, right? So that kind of what kind of human beings and graduates, like if I see a Montreat graduate and an alum sees a Montreat grad, what do they embody once they graduate from Montreat?
Well, what we hope they embody, and many of them do, and we can't guarantee outcomes, of course, but what we hope that they embody is a person who is humble, who recognizes that their place in the world is beneath a sovereign God, that their job is to serve and to be kind and to love their fellow human beings, but also to be a really well-educated contributor to society, but to do so rooted in trust and humility and ethics and character, for our graduates to be good wives and husbands, to be good parents, to be good coworkers, to be good members of society. It's about how we live life well together. And that to us is the well-rounded version of a college degree, is to help people emerge with that kind of character, not simply the ability to go do a job. We want our students to gain the critical thinking skills to be problem solvers. But if you can't solve a problem, you're going to have trouble in the workplace. But if you're not honest, if you're not a person of integrity, that problem solving is only going to get you so far.
What will Montreat look like 5 years from now?
You're asking me all these future questions. I don't know the future. I think we'll continue to grow. I think we have gained, our footprint continues to grow in the marketplace. Our kind of education appeals to a lot of people. And because we're so rare now in the marketplace, they're coming in larger numbers to us every year. So I think we'll continue to grow. I think we'll continue to expand our footprint in national leadership in cybersecurity education and workforce development. I think that we will, I think, I pray, I hope, I work toward that we'll become an increasing, thriving institution in a time when there's a real divide in American higher education between the schools that are closing, the schools that are thriving.
President Maurer, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
JP, thank you. Good to be with you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.